This lesson is on polynomials. I created a little box. If you would like to organize your notes like mine, then go ahead and pause, create the box, fill in the definitions, and we'll be right back. Okay, now I'm going to go over the definitions that you just wrote. First off, we've worked with polynomials, but we haven't actually talked about what they are. Polynomials are going to be one or many terms. They're going to be separated by operations. They're going to have no exponent that has a fraction or no negative exponent, and there'll be no division within the polynomial. The degree of a polynomial or a term is the exponent of each variable. If they ask you for the degree of the whole polynomial, you would be looking for the largest exponent present. Then we're going to skip to standard form. Standard form is when you put terms in descending order. So the highest goes first, and then the next term, and the next term. And this is going to be based off of your exponent. And last but not least, once you have it in standard form, the leading coefficient is going to be the number in front of the variable when it's in standard form. Okay, so we're going to take an example and talk about all of this vocab with one example. So let's say we have 3x squared minus 5x cubed plus 2. Okay, given that example, that is a polynomial. It's got three separate terms. The first term is 3x squared, then we have an operation of a minus, and we have 5x cubed, and then we have an operation of addition, and then we have the 2. The coefficient of each term is going to be in front of the variable. So this coefficient would be 3, this would be -5, and then this is just a constant, so it would just be 2. The degree, it says, is the exponent of each variable. So we have 3 degrees going on, one in each term. This degree would be 2. This degree would be nothing to do with this. The degree would just be the 3. And then this one doesn't have a variable. So technically, it would be x to the 0 power because there is no variable. So the degree in the constant terms are always going to be 0. If they ask you to put it in standard form, you're going to order it by these exponents. So the highest one present would be the 3. So we're going to put that first with the negative going with the 5. Then we're going to put the squared term next. It's positive 3. So we're going to put plus 3x squared. And then finally, we have x to the 0 power. So, which is just 2. So we're going to put that last. So we can talk about things like leading coefficient. Well, the leading coefficient of this guy is -5. It is in standard form. And then if we're asked to find the degree of the whole thing, then we would say that the highest one present would be 3. So that's using this vocab to understand polynomials. Next, we can take polynomials and we can classify them by 2 different things. We can classify them by degree, and we can classify them by the number of terms. Okay, so let's start with a degree of 0. So if I have just, let's say, a -8, the degree for that term would be 0. And the word that goes around, or that we call something with the degree 0, is constant. Why? Because there's no variation. It's always going to be -8. Why? Because we have x to the 0 power. Next, if we had, let's say we have an x, so it's just -8x. What degree is that? Well, the exponent is 1, so we're going to say the degree is 1, and if there is an x, there's always an understood 1 there. That is linear. Then let's add another x, making it x squared. This would be degree 2. And the word that corresponds with that classification is quadratic. And then lastly, let's add another x. So we have x to the 3rd power. That would be degree 3. And the word that corresponds with that would be cubic. Next, you can classify polynomials by the number of terms. So if you just have one term, let's say we just have 5. What's the number of terms? 1. And in that case, we're going to call it a monomial. The prefix mono just means we have one term. Let's say we then add an x to it. So we have 5 plus x. How many terms are there? 2. And then we name it a binomial. Let's say we add another term to it. So let's say x squared plus x plus 5. Notice I switched it around in standard form. How many terms? 3. And we would call that a trinomial. And then last but not least, anything after 3. So if you have 4, 10, 30 terms, anything more than 4 terms, 4 or more, we're going to go back to just calling it a polynomial. So an example would be maybe x cubed plus x squared plus x plus 5. And that's going to wrap up the lesson on polynomials.